This giant Maine Coon never leaves the shoulder of the man who saved him. He was too big for anyone to handle, 18 pounds of muscle and fur, a cat the size of a small dog. And everyone who met him said the exact same thing. That one is too wild, too much, too dangerous. They were all wrong, because today, that same giant cat rides on a man's shoulder through the forest every single morning. Rain or cold, he is there. He never runs, he never wanders. He clings to the one human who finally looked past his size and saw his heart. His name is Atlas, and this is his story. 3 years ago, Atlas didn't have a name. He had a number, Cage 41, a cold metal box in the loudest hallway of the shelter, where the big cats went, the ones people were afraid to touch. He had been surrendered twice, both times for the same reason. Too aggressive, too strong, can't control him. But nobody ever asked the real question. Nobody ever asked why he hissed. The truth was simple. Atlas had never been held gently, not once in his life. When you're that big, people expect you to be a threat before you ever open your mouth. So he learned to be the thing they feared. It was easier than being disappointed. For 11 months, he sat in that cage. He watched families walk by. He watched them stop at the kittens, the small ones, the easy ones, and he watched them speed up when they reached him. Every time. He stopped looking up when footsteps came. He just turned to face the wall. Some nights, when the shelter went dark and quiet, he would let out one low sound. Not a hiss, not a growl, just a small, tired call into the empty hallway. No one ever answered it, so he stopped making it. The volunteers wrote one word on his file: unadoptable. They weren't being cruel, they were being honest. A frightened giant is not a pet. He is a wall of fur and claws that no one knows how to reach. And then, on a gray afternoon in late winter, a man named Thomas walked in. Thomas was 58, a quiet man. He had spent 30 years working outdoors, walking long trails alone, needing no one. His last dog had passed the year before. The house had been silent ever since, too silent. He wasn't looking for a giant cat. He wasn't looking for a project. He told the staff he wanted something calm, something easy. They showed him the front rooms first, the friendly ones, the lap cats. But Thomas kept walking. He turned down the back hallway by accident, and there, in Cage 41, was Atlas, ears flat, facing the wall, refusing to look. The volunteer caught up fast. "Oh, not that one, sir. He's a Maine Coon, very high energy. He's been returned twice. We don't usually even show him." Thomas didn't answer. He just crouched down, slow, quiet, and he stayed there. He didn't reach in, he didn't make a sound. He simply sat on the cold floor beside the cage and waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. And slowly, Atlas turned his massive head just once. He looked at the man on the floor who wasn't afraid of him, and for the first time in 11 months, the giant cat did not hiss. The first weeks home were not a fairy tale. Atlas hid on top of the tallest bookshelf. He wouldn't come down. He knocked things over. He watched Thomas from the shadows like he was waiting for the moment it would all fall apart again. Thomas never chased him. He just left food out, fresh water, and every evening he sat in his chair and read out loud into the quiet house. He never raised his voice, not once. And slowly, the giant came down from the shelf. Quick pause here. If this story is already pulling at your heart and you still haven't subscribed, that honestly breaks my heart a little. Hit that subscribe button right now. It costs you nothing, and it helps stories like Atlas find the people who need them. Now, back to the trail. Because that's where everything changed. One morning, Thomas grabbed his backpack for his usual walk, and Atlas did something he had never done before. He followed him to the door. Thomas paused. Then, on instinct, he opened the top of his pack and knelt down. He didn't call, he didn't force, he just waited. And that huge cat climbed in. They walked for 2 hours that day. Atlas rode with his head poking out of the pack, watching the world go by. Ears up, calm, safe. When they got home, he did something else new. He climbed onto Thomas's shoulder, and he stayed there, purring, a deep, rumbling purr that filled the whole room. From that morning on, they were never apart. Every single day they walked. through forests, along muddy paths, past strangers who stopped and stared at the giant cat riding a man's shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. And Atlas never once tried to leave. But the real test was still coming. One freezing morning, deep on a trail miles from home, Thomas felt a sharp pain shoot down his left arm. His chest tightened, his vision blurred. He dropped to his knees on the empty path. No one was around, no houses, no people, just the cold and the trees. And Atlas. The giant cat leapt from his shoulder. He planted himself in front of Thomas and let out a sound the man had never heard before. Not a meow, a loud, harsh, almost human cry, over and over. Thomas tried to stand. He couldn't. He slumped against a tree, fading, his phone just out of reach in his pocket. The cold crept in, his eyes grew heavy. He whispered the cat's name once, barely a sound, and Atlas heard him. The giant cat did not run. He pressed his massive body against the man's chest to keep him warm, and he screamed. He screamed until his voice cracked. A jogger nearly a quarter mile away heard it. She said later it sounded like a child crying in the woods. She followed the sound and found a man collapsed on the trail, a giant cat standing guard over him, refusing to move. She called for help. The ambulance reached them in 14 minutes. The paramedics found Thomas cold but breathing, with an 18-pound Maine Coon curled against his heart, still crying. At the hospital, a doctor told him the truth. It was a heart attack, and those extra minutes of warmth, that constant sound that led help to him, they likely saved his life. The cat everyone called too wild, too dangerous, too much. He was the reason Thomas came home. Atlas is 6 years old now. He still rides on Thomas's shoulder every single morning, through the same forests, past the same trees, his head held high, his eyes calm, watching over the man who once sat on a cold floor and refused to walk away. People still stop them on the trail. They still say, "He's so big. Isn't he wild? Isn't he dangerous?" And Thomas always smiles and gives the same answer. He was never dangerous. He was just waiting for someone to stay. Because that's the truth about the ones nobody wants. They aren't broken. They aren't monsters. They're just hearts that have been overlooked too many times, waiting for one person to finally see them. Sometimes the biggest cats carry the softest souls, and sometimes the ones everyone fears turn out to be the ones who save us. All they ever needed was a single person willing to stay. If you're ever thinking of adopting, please don't skip the big ones, the scary ones, the ones in the back cage facing the wall. They love the hardest of all. So tell me honestly, would you have knelt down beside cage 41, or would you have walked right past the giant like everyone else? Let me know in the comments below.